Hey guys, it's Friction here, Tank12. However you wanna call me, I don't really care. And it is today, the 1st of October, and what we're going to be watching, or what we're going to be reacting to today, is the Death Diary Italian Heavy Tanks video that Wargaming have just released. We're going to be talking about this, but we're going to watch this video first, and we're going to be pausing it at some certain important moments so we can talk about it, and in the end, after the video is done, we're going to be finishing it all up. Now, I'm also going to self-promote right here. I have started streaming on Twitch. I've been trying it out right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to be streaming on Twitch or on YouTube regarding World of Tanks content. I'm still figuring that out, so you might see some YouTube World of Tanks streams, but I'm going to be posting my Twitch link just in the video. In the video, you should see a link now below, and if you want to check it out, go over there. We can interact more with direct me being in-game and you guys being out there as well. And yeah, that's something that I want to build up, and obviously it doesn't make sense to not promote that if I already have an audience on YouTube. So I'd say without further ado, let's watch this video.
In December 2019, the Italian Heavy Tanks branch was announced at WG Fest in Moscow. A lot of work has been done since then. It's time to demonstrate to you the technological pinnacle of Italian heavy tanks, featuring an improved auto-reloader system.
Okay, sounds good. We've known about the Italian heavy tanks for about a year now.
Italy is a country with a long history of building heavy tanks.
What the hell is that? What? Okay.
There's the Fiat 2000 from World War I. During the interwar period, Italians were making heavy tanks at the request of the USSR. Italians started developing vehicles for themselves since late 1938. According to the Italian classification, they were heavy vehicles, but the weight of these vehicles didn't exceed 30 tons and decreased even more later on. The end of World War II put Italian tank building on hold. The country's damaged economy was supported by the Marshall Plan. However, even with external help, Italy couldn't afford any major leaps in tank development after World War II. Yeah. In any case, they couldn't even produce heavy armament. But that didn't mean they couldn't design new heavy tanks.
Interesting. So they couldn't actually build them.
They'll branch off the P43 BIS at Tier 6. It will include 4
Okay, you know what? We're gonna stop it right here. We have now 5 different tanks in here. So I think one of them, if we're like starting off at Tier 6, we can actually already think about which one of them is going to be which tier, I think, generally speaking. Because this vehicle over there looks very similar to a Tier 7, because the Italian Tier 6 is still a medium tank. Tier 7 over there, this might be a Tier 8, this might be a Tier 9 or a Tier 10, or this might be the Tier 10. That over there could be a Tier 8, could also be a Tier 9, I'm not entirely sure, but it's quite interesting because we see 5 tanks. We know that 4 of them need to be standard and 1 of them could be a premium. We already know that there's going to be a Tier 10 reward vehicle coming for the Italians. We're not sure if it's a medium or a heavy tank yet, but it's the Caro 45T, where we already have like a lot of news about it. And I actually already talked about it as well. But you can see the general idea behind these tanks. They all look very similar in their design and in their concept. And I think they all look very similar to an M4, not M4, but the M1, at least that one over there. And this one over there as well, with the angled design. So
will include 4 vehicles. At Tier 7, there is the Carro de Salto P88.
Okay.
Although it is the only Italian heavy tank without an auto-reloader.
It
has 2 cyclical guns with a high rate of fire at its disposal.
Okay, so we have 240 damage. One is a 90mm gun, the other one is an 88. The 88 has less pen with 164. The 90 has 202 millimeters of pen. That's pretty good for a Tier 7. That's really good. Rate of fire 6.9 versus 8 rounds per minute. I would rather go with higher pen with this one, to be fair. This might be a stock gun, or one of them might be. I think the 88 might be a stock gun, but we don't know yet. They already said that this one does not have the auto-reloading system.
There's a hint of another reworked wartime project in this tank, a concept using a rear transmission arrangement. The hull was longer, but maintenance was easier. This solution brings to mind the experience of British designers who tried to make heavy tanks out of light tanks. That is why this Italian has good mobility for a heavy with average armor.
It looks like
the
a Valentine.
Continues with the Progetto Cc55 Mod 54 at Tier 8. It was influenced by not only the American pilot projects of the early 1950s, but also by the fact that most tanks in service with the Italian army in the 50s and 60s were produced in America, the M46 and M47. In general, the concept of post-war tanks resembled the American Pershing. These vehicles were in service with the Italian army by the mid-60s. The Progetto Cc55 Mod 54 is better protected than its predecessor and has a more powerful 105mm gun.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
The most interesting aspect of the Progetto Cc55 is that it's the first appearance of the Italian Heavy's improved auto-reloader.
Improved auto-reloader. So this is the Tier 8, and if you look at the turret, you can see already the angular shapes, like the ideas where they've picked that up from, I don't know, German and Soviet tank design. And you can see that this is just a very low polygon model that they have now because it's still in development. But you can see the average damage is 360. It's a 105mm gun, which is auto-reloader. And I think it has 3 shells because each one of these reload times is basically for the first or the second or the third shell that is being reloaded. So the first shell, 16 seconds, 13 seconds for the second shell, and 11 seconds for the third shell if you have the other 2 shells in there already. Average pen of 220 at Tier 8, that's pretty nice, that's decent. 360 alpha, that is nice. That is the same kind of strength that the Tiger II has, I think, I remember now, and I think this alpha damage really gives you a fast boost, a kick, that you don't really have with other Tier 8 heavies, for example.
Let's talk more about it. When there's no danger, shells auto-reload similarly to Italian medium tanks. The first shell loads the slowest, the last the fastest. The differences begin when you start shooting.
Okay.
For example, let's take a situation when the first shell is ready to fire and the second one is still loading. If it was fired from an Italian medium tank, you would have to wait the full shell loading time. After a shot, the improved mechanic starts working, which facilitates the gun reloading.
What? So if you fire a shot while the shell is still loading into the magazine with the heavy tank, you actually reload faster than you would, like with the American mediums. It is basically, the Italian medium tanks, sorry. It's basically you fire, you restart the timer with the reload. You don't get like a boost. But this time around, it looks like they want you to fire while the other shell is still loading, which gives you a decreased time, but we can just watch more.
A special marker will be displayed next to the loading timer. The reloading time of the next shell will start gradually decreasing. Once the marker turns white, the loading time will be halved, a nice bonus. You can fire at any moment, but the longer the shell reloads, the faster the next shell becomes available.
Okay, that's
Take a
pretty cool.
shot before the shell reloads completely. Otherwise, the next shell will be loaded as normal.
Okay, so they really want you to actually fire while you're still reloading to get the maximum ability out of it. What are they calling this mechanic now? Because it's an auto-reloader, yes, but with a special kind of mechanic, which does distinguish it more from the medium tanks, which is super cool in my opinion, because I think we need more mechanics in the game. You know, keep it fresh. They have to introduce something like that to keep the gameplay innovative, and, you know, interesting for older players and even for new players.
The gameplay variety of the Italian vehicles. So, in the near future, we'll focus on testing it properly.
Yeah, this is all going to be subject to change. Just wanted to say that real fast here.
The Tier 9 Progetto C50 was
Oh, that
inspired
looks
by
so
German
crazy. That
developments.
looks modern.
By the late 50s, the Germans started working on their own tank design. Back then, it was called the Standardpanzer. The French were interested in this project, and it helped them create the AMX-30 later on. But the Italians were the first ones to get the Zero Series Standardpanzer. It's safe to assume that these developments influenced the project as they are embodied in the new branch at Tier 9. The Progetto C50 Mod 66 has all the features of a mobile heavy tank, good dynamics, great frontal armor, a powerful 120mm gun with an improved auto-reloading system.
Can we just talk about the looks of this tank? That it seems to be like a modern MBT. That it kind of goes into that direction, because it seems very much to be like close to the Ariete. If you don't know, that's the Italian main battle tank that they're using today. And that it's kind of going in that direction with the Italians. And that is, to be fair, very exciting on the one hand, but also very scary on the other hand, because, to be fair, I'm not sure if we're there yet to get into the very modern tanks, or like the steps that the modern tanks kind of combine, the crazy armor, the angles, the reactive armor, all that stuff. It doesn't mean that they're going to be getting reactive armor, but if you look at the turret design, it's crazy similar to the modern tank design, even of the Challenger. That the angles, it's rather thick, but they probably will have to address that at some point, because if they don't, these things are going to be like the new T95 Chieftains, just on your standard kind of tech tree. But if we look at the statistics that we have, this is the Tier 9, it has really good depression angles with 9 degrees. 20 degrees of gun elevation is pretty damn good as well. It has a 120mm gun, 400 alpha damage, 268mm of penetration. That sounds very much like APCR, because I know that a couple of tanks that have 268, I think, with APCR. But I might be mistaken. I might be thinking of medium tanks right here, because I know that E50M has 268mm of penetration with APCR shells. This is the reload time. 17, 15, and 13. As already mentioned, if you fire before the shell is ready, you'll actually get the time halved if you fire at the correct time, where like this little thing was moving in and getting, you know, closed. So that's rather interesting. It seems to me that this entire tech tree, they're supposed to be fast, they're supposed to have good guns, they're supposed to be auto reloaders. That's already pretty damn impressive. They might also have armor because they're heavy tanks. That does sound very, very good. Maybe a little bit too good, but you know what? This is just my kind of negative person speaking. No. Let's not say the pessimist is speaking here, but I'm just looking at it a little bit from the sidelines, because you can still balance these tanks in the end, right? We don't really know if these tanks have ever really existed. Might have been blueprints, maybe just ideas, maybe not even blueprints, but we know that Italian and European tank design after World War II was rather interesting, because there were some joint projects about a main battle tank coming from, you know, Europe, from all the different nations together. And we know that the Germans work with the Americans on the MBT-70. So yeah, all in all, a very interesting phase during the Cold War for tank design. But let's move on.
And good elevation and depression angles. This turns it from a support vehicle into a self-reliant combat vehicle. The pinnacle of the branch is a tank with the exotic name Reynold Charante, which means rhino in Italian.
Wow,
this
that
tank
looks
is highly
super
mobile,
cool.
which allows it to initiate an attack on the flanks along with medium tanks. And its great armor enables it to lead the advance. It's armed with a 127mm gun that deals 490 damage per shot. And it's
okay, this looks really cool. A tier 10 it's kind of the size of a medium tank, to be fair, designated as a heavy tank. It has a 127mm gun, which has the same pen as the 120mm, but more damage with 490. And then you have the auto-reloading system. The turret looks super interesting because it's basically just a gun, and the rest of the turret is kind of tacked on behind of it. Maybe just ammo storage, nothing else. And the gun is the real star here, the real star of the show. The vehicle already looks super interesting. It already has like HD textures, so this is definitely going to be coming into the game looking like that, I think. We don't know anything about the speed. We don't know anything about the armor yet. We don't know anything about the gun elevation, depression, the gun handling yet. So it's all still subject to change, but we get some general ideas of what this vehicle might be capable of with this kind of armament. Very interesting, definitely.
Equipped with the improved auto-reloading system, whose combat performance can't be underestimated. The Reynold Charante has a unique set of characteristics that allow it to switch battle tactics. Summarizing the branch, it's safe to say that these vehicles are very mobile and can hold their own in firepower compared to same-tier vehicles. At the final stages of testing, they will be shaped into completely capable vehicles that don't break the current balance.
Okay, so Wargaming have already told us that these things will not break the balance, because that is something that is probably going through the heads of a lot of players that are watching this video, because obviously how are you going to be guaranteeing the balance if they are supposed to have basically everything? You'll need to tone down on something, right? But the last tank, the tier 10, the Reynold, the Rhino, let's call it that, because the other name, really cool, but I can't pronounce it. I'm no Italian. But yeah, that looked really cool. I'm looking forward to the Italians. It's probably coming out on the test server in the next month or two. Now it's on the super test, and I'll give you guys I'll show you guys what's happening on there later. I'm not on the super test, I just wanted to say that, but once they come out on the test server, I'll be covering them, and you'll find out all the things you need about these tanks. And yeah, let's move on. Premium Italian heavy
Along
tank.
with the researchable vehicles in the Italian tech tree,
the
Progetto C45 Mod 71 Tier 8 premium tank will be added to the game. It will be the first to be sent to Super Test, so let us tell you a bit more about it. This project is a combat vehicle concept that was a result of Italian designers studying German developments. A whole series of vehicles was developed with a significantly increased combat weight, but a relatively low profile. Additionally, new development in armor protection was happening at that time. In particular, spaced armor made its return after being developed during World War II. The Progetto C45 Mod 71 has great upper glacis angles and somewhat rounded turret corners.
So this is going to be a great hull down tank.
Its effective armor is great and has additional protection in the form of screens.
Wait, what? Are you telling me 330mm of armor right there, 310 on the turret, 280 on the gun mantle, 240 on the upper glacis? Is this like with the current angle that we're looking at, or is it basically the armor of the vehicle? Because if this is the armor of the vehicle at tier 8, we're gonna have a problem.
This tank feels comfortable against same-tier enemies on the front line.
Okay.
And it's even better in positional combat if you have a chance to use terrain to your advantage. The depression angle of -10 degrees allows it to completely hide the hull and block damage with the turret. In this position, the effective armor increases even more, and it can become a big problem for many enemies. The 105mm gun and 3-shell magazine can deal 1,000 damage in 6 seconds.
Okay, that sounds super
And of course,
crazy.
it has the improved auto-reloading system that will enable it to feel confident in any situation. The situation requires firing like a cyclical vehicle? Great. Got a chance to deal a lot of damage to the enemy with all 3 shells? Sure thing.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop it real fast. This is probably the last time I'll stop this footage now. This is exactly what I've talked about previously. Now, how they are marketing this vehicle right now, we don't know the stats yet. Everything is still subject to change. But how they're displaying it, it kind of shows you it's supposed to be like this crazy tier 8 premium tank that as a Italian heavy, that is supposed to be able to do a lot of things. And in situational combat, like with those hills, it has like crazy good haul down capabilities. This is exactly what I'm scared of, that this is what the Italian tech tree is going to become like. And if this is going to be like super overpowered, like 330 millimeters of frontal upper hull armor, or like 310 millimeters of turret armor on a tier 8, that is a bit problematic. Because, yeah, it's going to be a tank that you buy. And I might think that this could be this year's Christmas crate drop. If we're being honest, this might just be it. I'm not sure. I'm a bit scared at the moment. It looks good. I hope they just don't overdo it.
The enemy won't let you safely reload your magazine? No problem. You can still bring the fight in cyclical firing mode. And the most calculating soldier can even shoot twice at the enemy and switch to cyclical firing. And when the enemy has very little HP left, finish them off with 2 accurate shots.
It looks like the Abrams, to be fair.
However, such benefits have a price.
The
The accuracy and aiming characteristics of the tank are below average. You probably won't be able to fire effectively from mid-distance, despite the nice view range of 380 meters. But in most cases, this won't be necessary. The Progetto C45 Mod 71 has good mobility as for a heavy tank. Its top speed of 50 kilometers per hour and specific power of 12.46 horsepower per ton allow it to cross long distances without being an outsider among other heavy tanks of the same tier. Soon, the Progetto C45 Mod 71, together with other Italian heavy tanks, will get to the super test, where we'll be adjusting their characteristics right up until release. Upon making changes, we'll share additional details. Meanwhile, leave your feedback on the forum and in the comments under the video. It helps us make the game better. Good luck on the battlefield.
Okay. Well, I would say, overall, I am quite pleasantly surprised. I think they definitely have a place in the game. All of these tanks, starting from the tier 7 to the tier 8 to the tier 9 and the tier 10. The balancing is going to be a huge thing. It's going to be very interesting to see how Wargaming will, handle this task. We have seen that they can do it with the buffing of certain tanks, but we also seen that they cannot do it with certain other aspects in the game that are still kind of broken. Artillery, for example, still broken. But, we're going to move past that. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think this looks really interesting. I think it looks like a mechanic that might fit very well into the game. But they have to be careful that they don't overdo it, especially with the mobility that they're kind of promising us at the moment. They're promising us speedy vehicles, they're promising us armor that is capable of, competing at the same tier. They're promising us a gun that has like auto reloading capabilities. The very first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this is what is going to happen with the likes of the AMX 50B. I know it's a very fast tank. It is an auto loader, it's not an auto reloader, but the AMX 50B already is kind of in a situation where it's just not doing too well. What is going to happen when these tanks hit the game? Because if they have better mobility or equal or similar mobility to the AMX 50B, an auto reloading feature, good gun handling, good reload time, and the armor to put up with it, like what are you going to tell the players that are playing the 50B What happens to that vehicle? Is it becoming completely, ridiculously underpowered, unimportant to the game? Then if we take a look at this vehicle right here, this is all the fears combined that it could be another Defender. We don't want that. We don't want the return of crazy premium vehicles that just offset the balance of Tier 8 completely. We already have enough Tier 8 premium tanks. But obviously, I mean, they want to add, just balance it right. It doesn't have to be the most powerful. It needs to be fun to play. It needs to be fun to play against. That is very important. But other than that, I mean, I think it looks really impressive. It looks really interesting, and I would love to hear what you guys think about this entire thing. I'm looking forward to the Italians. I've looked forward to the medium tanks. I'm looking forward to the heavies. Let's go. Forza Italia. Let's get some very good vehicles in there. So, I'm just going to self-promote one more time. Check out the Twitch channel. Subscribe or follow there, and we'll meet up on a live stream very soon.